Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of my devlog covering the 2D sci-fi action adventure Resonant Blade. Last time we looked at the new shopping center, some scene transitions, and player animations. In this episode, I want to show you a few new areas, teleporters, some new NPCs, updates with the dialogue UI, and the new quest system. I made the inside of the Citadel a fairly large space with 3 rooms. There's the main chamber when you first enter, which just has some columns right now and a few NPCs. The hall on the left leads to Administrator Rhea's office. The hall to the right leads to the teleporter room, which takes you over to ProtoLabs. ProtoLabs is the building on the floating island outside. At the top of the main chamber, there's an elevator that will eventually lead up to the Chancellor's office and some living quarters for council members and other official people. That part still needs to be built though. Moving inside the teleporter room, I started with a teleport pad that had some animated lights and then added collision so that the player would be able to walk around it. There's one NPC in here, an engineer maintaining and working on the teleportation device. For using the teleport pad, I started with the player teleportation animation. To teleport, the player must be standing on top of the pad and hold the activate button down for a couple of seconds. When the player releases the button, the animation will change, quickly followed by the scene transition. If the player doesn't hold the button long enough, the animation will stop and nothing will happen. I might need to add an interruption to the teleport if the player were to hit another movement key or any other key while trying to teleport. Some kind of visual UI indicator to show the teleport pad being activated would also be a nice detail to throw in there. To get in and out of this room, the player walks through an automatic sliding door. Walking close enough to it from either side will trigger the code that opens the door. This room will initially be locked and will require a key for the player to get through, which you'll end up getting from completing a quest from Administrator Rhea. I've made a few improvements on the dialogue system. I added support for multiple dialogue boxes for longer conversations with one NPC. I also threw in an alternate dialogue option for speaking to an NPC more than a set number of times, so they might eventually get mad at you if you keep talking to them. I added in rich text support for the dialogue, so now I can dynamically modify the text style, the size, and color while the text is unfolding. Right now, any text modified with tags will display immediately compared to normal text, which is something I need to fix, along with the text not wrapping around properly when it gets to the end of the line. With the dialogue mostly working, I started implementing a simple quest system. For the first quest, after you speak to Administrator Rhea, she'll mention that your ProtoLabs access has been revoked. The only way to get access again is to collect guard reports from around the city and then turn them into her. Doing this updates your clearance level and lets you get into the teleportation room that leads to ProtoLabs. Creating the quest system and tying it in with the dialogue got a little tricky at times, especially when loading different scenes and having to keep track of certain variables. I'm glad I ran into this problem now though, because I'll have to use this data serialization for loading and saving later. So after carving out the interior to ProtoLabs, I worked on some props and animations to liven up the place a bit. The first floor has the office lab area on the left, and the crafting tech room on the right side. There's also an elevator in the back left that only goes down right now to the Holo Arena. For NPCs, I added in a few scientists and a robot receptionist. Going down the elevator leads to the Holo Arena, a room for combat testing. I made the camera change to focus on the room's center after you enter into the room from the hall above. The camera switches back when exiting the room too. I also added in some holes that the player can cross over by dashing. The only way that you can fall in is if you end your dash while over the hole, or if you get knocked back by an enemy. You can interface with the terminal on the wall to spawn a random group of enemies in the room. I might end up using this room as a kind of tutorial for using the Resonant Blade and the AV Augment. Or it could be an optional challenge room with different levels of rewards based on how many waves of enemies you clear. And that's it for this episode. For next time, I want to try and focus on polishing the core concept of how the player will be using the Resonant Blade and AV Augment in different situations. I also want to refine some enemy animations and mechanics before I go on and create any more new enemies. If you like the video and want to see more, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. If you want to see more frequent updates, just follow me on Twitter. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you next time.